Emma's breath caught in her throat as she stood in the dim light of the hallway. The silence in the house was broken only by the distant hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. She was about to head out for the evening, a routine evening, run to the store before dinner, when she heard a faint knock at the door. It was soft, hesitant, almost as if the person on the other side wasn't sure they should be there at all. Curiosity tugged at her. She wasn't expecting anyone, and she wasn't used to visitors at this hour. For a moment she hesitated, unsure of whether she should answer. Something in her gut told her to wait, but before she could dismiss it, the knocking came again, louder this time. It was a knock filled with urgency. Without thinking, she reached for the handle and swung the door open. Standing there, soaked to the bone, was a little girl, no older than 6, maybe 7. Her face was streaked with dirt, and her wide, terrified eyes locked onto Emma's, filled with a silent desperation. The girl didn't say a word. Her lips trembled, as if the effort of speaking would break something inside her. Emma's heart tightened as she took in the girl's ragged appearance. Her clothes clung to her small frame, wet from the rain. She looked like she had been running for miles. What happened?" Emma asked, her voice shaking despite her attempt to keep it steady. The girl didn't answer, her gaze darting behind her, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. Emma instinctively stepped back, her motherly instincts flaring. "Come inside," she said, pulling the girl gently but firmly into the warmth of her home. The moment the door closed behind them, Emma locked it without a second thought. She had never seen this child before, but there was something in the air, a palpable tension that made her heart race. Emma knelt down to the child's level, trying to meet her eyes, but the girl wouldn't look up. Her hands were trembling as she clutched a small torn backpack to her chest. "Are you okay?" Emma asked softly, her voice full of concern. The girl shook her head, tears threatening to spill over. Emma's mind raced. Should she call the police? Should she try to figure out where the girl came from first? But before she could make any decisions, the child spoke in a whisper, barely audible. "Please, don't tell anyone I'm here." The words hung in the air, heavy and full of unspoken fear. Emma frowned. "Who's after you?" she asked, though she already feared she knew the answer. The girl swallowed hard, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "I don't know. I just ran." Emma stood up, pacing for a moment, her mind trying to piece together the situation. This wasn't just some random child knocking at her door. No child would come to a stranger for help unless they were desperate, unless they had nowhere else to go. And this little one looked like she'd been through something terrible. "Okay," Emma said, her voice soft but firm. "You're safe here. We're not going to hurt you." The girl nodded, still not speaking, but Emma could see the relief in her eyes. The tension in the room eased just a little. Emma walked over to the phone on the counter and hesitated. She needed to call someone, get help, but part of her knew that something was off. Something was wrong, and if she called the authorities, now the girl would be taken away, back to wherever she came from. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the girl had no intention of going back to that place. She turned back to the child, who was now sitting on the couch, her hands still. Clutching the backpack tightly, Emma approached her slowly. "Can I help you? Do you need anything?" The girl looked up at Emma, her voice barely a whisper. "I need to stay here. Please." A wave of uncertainty washed over Emma. She had no idea what this child was running from, but she knew one thing for sure. Something was terribly wrong. Hours passed in a blur. Emma made the child a warm meal and sat with her in silence as the rain continued to pour outside. She could tell the girl was exhausted, emotionally and physically drained. At one point, the child had fallen asleep in the corner of the couch, curled into a ball. Emma sat by her side, watching her, trying to make sense of the situation. Around midnight, Emma finally made up her mind. She would call the authorities, but she wouldn't hand the girl over just yet. Not without understanding what was really going on. As she picked up the phone, ready to dial, the doorbell rang. Emma froze. Her heart stopped for a second, a chill running down her spine. The girl didn't stir, but Emma could feel her anxiety building. She didn't want anyone else to know the child was here. The knock earlier had been so soft, so unassuming, and yet it had felt like a warning, like an omen. Whoever was at the door now, they wouldn't just be anyone. Carefully, she stood up and moved toward the door, trying to calm her racing heart. With one last glance at the sleeping child, she pressed her ear to the door. A deep voice called from the other side. "I'm looking for someone, a little girl. Have you seen her?" Emma's stomach twisted. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady but her pulse racing. "I'm just here to help," the voice said, though there was a strange coldness to it. "She's in danger. I need to find her." Emma hesitated. The words hit her like a slap in the face. The girl was in danger. But from whom? And why had this man come looking for her now? With a deep breath, Emma opened the door a crack, just enough to see the man standing outside. He looked ordinary, but there was something unsettling about his demeanor. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't asking politely. He was demanding, almost forceful. The way he spoke made her feel uneasy, like he was hiding something. "I'm sorry, I haven't seen anyone," Emma lied, closing the door a little more. The man paused, as if considering her words. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. Emma watched him retreat into the darkness, feeling the weight of the situation settle even heavier on her shoulders. Her heart was racing. There was something about that man, something about his presence, that made Emma feel like the world had shifted out of place. Who was he, and why had he come for the little girl? What was the danger that he spoke of? Emma returned to the living room, her mind spinning. She glanced at the girl, who was still asleep on the couch, unaware of the encounter. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. The mystery had only just begun. Emma's hands trembled as she stared at the screen of her phone. The message had sent a chill straight through her chest. "I know you have her. Don't think you can hide. It's not over." The words were simple, but their weight pressed heavily on Emma's heart. Her mind raced. How had they found out about the girl so quickly? She hadn't told anyone. The child had barely opened up, and Emma had only spoken to her late in the evening, right after the girl had knocked on her door. Who was they? And more importantly, what did they want with a frightened child who had clearly been running for her life? Emma's thoughts spiraled as she glanced over at the girl, still curled up on the couch, unaware of the danger lurking just outside their door. The little girl was silent now, her chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm as she slept, her face soft and innocent, but there was a darkness in her past that Emma couldn't yet see. She needed answers, and she needed them fast, without another thought. Emma grabbed her jacket from the hook by the door and stepped outside into the cold, damp night. The rain had finally subsided, leaving behind a haze that clung to the streets like a shroud. Her feet splashed through the puddles as she walked briskly toward the mailbox. Maybe there was something she'd missed, maybe a sign, a clue, anything that could help her understand why someone would be hunting this child. As she reached the curb, her eyes scanned the surroundings, but there was nothing. No sign of the man who had come to the door, no lingering shadow. Still, her nerves were on edge, the uneasy feeling growing with every passing second. She didn't know why, but she felt as though something terrible was about to happen. As she made her way back to the house, she caught sight of something strange. A car, dark and parked a few houses down. It was a black sedan, its windows tinted, and its engine was off. Emma couldn't make out the driver, but the hairs on the back of her neck stood up as she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Had someone been watching the house? Were they waiting for her to slip up? Her heart pounded as she quickly turned back toward her house, trying to stay calm. She was not about to let fear take over, not yet. She had to think clearly, and the girl needed her. Inside, she found the child stirring. The little one blinked up at her, and for the briefest moment, Emma could see the vulnerability in her eyes. The fear was still there, but there was also something else. Something Emma couldn't quite place. The girl slowly sat up and looked around, her eyes darting nervously as though she expected someone to be standing in the doorway. She didn't speak, just shifted her weight uncomfortably, as if she wanted to run again. Emma's heart softened. She kneeled beside her. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe here. No one is going to hurt you." The girl shook her head. I can't stay here." Emma frowned. "What do you mean? You're safe." "I can't stay here because they'll find me. They'll hurt me," she whispered, almost too quietly for Emma to hear. "Who?" Emma asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Who will hurt you?" The girl hesitated, looking down at her. "Hands. They always find me. They always find me." Emma's stomach dropped. "Who is they?" she repeated, her voice growing more urgent. The girl shifted uncomfortably, her fingers twisting in her lap. "I can't say. They'll hurt you too if you help me." The words struck Emma like a punch to the gut. Her instincts screamed at her to back away, but she couldn't, not yet. The girl had already come so far. She had to know more. Emma took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I'm not afraid of them," she said, but even she didn't believe it. "You're not alone. You can trust me." For the first time that night, the girl met her gaze. Her eyes were wide with fear, but there was something else. Something like desperation. "I can't go back," the girl whispered. I was supposed to be somewhere safe, but they made me run." Emma's heart raced. Where were you supposed to be?" The girl swallowed hard. "I don't know. They don't tell me things. They just tell me to run. The girl trailed off, her words slipping into a tangled mess. Emma's mind spun. She knew the girl wasn't just running from a dangerous situation. She was running from something organized, something much bigger than Emma had imagined. Before Emma could ask anything further, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, Emma answered. "Hello?" A gruff male voice answered on the other end. "You don't know who you're dealing with," the voice said coldly, sending a chill through Emma's spine. "She's not safe with you. If you want to keep her alive, you'll let us take her." "Who is this?" Emma's voice trembled. With anger. "I'm not letting anyone take her. She's safe here. You stay away from her." The voice on the other end laughed darkly. "You don't understand. You think you can protect her, but you're just getting in the way. You've made a mistake, and now you'll pay for it." The line went dead. Emma stood frozen, staring at the phone in her hand. Her heart was pounding in her chest, her thoughts racing. What had she just heard? Was this the same man who had come to the door earlier? Was this the same person hunting the girl? There was no time to waste. Emma turned to the child, who had been quietly watching her every move. "We have to leave," Emma said urgently. "We can't stay here. We're not safe." The girl's eyes widened. "Where can we go?" Emma paused. She had no plan, no escape route. All she knew was that they had to get away from whoever these people were. They had to find safety, and they had to do it fast. The night passed in a blur of hurried packing, silenced conversations, and a deepening sense of fear. Emma's mind raced, trying to think of a place where they could hide, somewhere the girl would be safe. But every option seemed too risky. There were no guarantees, not anymore. By the time morning came, Emma had made a decision. They would leave. They'd find somewhere to stay, somewhere remote, away from the eyes of whoever had been hunting this child. But even as she packed, the unease in her gut told her this was only the beginning. Whoever these people were, they wouldn't stop. They would never stop. Emma had opened a door she couldn't close, and now she was in too deep to turn back. As they slipped out of the house and into the early morning light, Emma's phone buzzed. Again. She didn't want to answer, not after the last call, but something told her she had to. Hello? Good morning, Emma. The voice on the other end was smooth, calm, and yet full of menace. I hope you're ready. The real game is just about to begin. Emma's heart raced as she pressed the phone to her ear. The voice on the other end was cold, chillingly calm, and the word sent a jolt through her spine. Good morning, Emma. I hope you're ready. The real game is just about to begin. She stood in the living room, frozen, the phone gripped tightly in her hand. The air felt thick, suffocating, as the words echoed in her mind. What game? What was happening? How had this all gone from an act of kindness to a life-threatening chase? The girl, still quietly huddled in the corner of the room, glanced up at Emma, her face pale and wide-eyed. She hadn't spoken a word since they left the house, but Emma could see the fear building in her small frame. The child's hands shook as she clutched her backpack to her chest, her gaze darting around the room, as if expecting something, or someone, to jump out of the shadows. They know where we are, Emma whispered, mostly to herself. The realization hit like a tidal wave. The voice on the phone wasn't just a random threat. It was an indication that the people chasing this girl were already closing in. The clock was ticking. Emma swallowed hard. We need to go. Now. She turned toward the door, her mind working at 100 miles per hour. She had no plan, no escape route, no backup. Just this frightened child and her instinct to protect her. As Emma grabbed her coat and pulled it on, the girl stood up hesitantly. Where are we going? She asked, in a voice barely above a whisper, her eyes filled with uncertainty. I don't know yet, Emma replied, her voice tight, trying to stay calm. But we're going to be okay. Just stay close. With one last glance around the room, Emma opened the door and stepped into the cool morning air. The streets were eerily quiet, the faint smell of rain still lingering in the air. There was a chill in the atmosphere, the kind of cold that seemed to cut right through to the bone. They moved quickly, sticking to the side streets, away from the main roads. Emma kept her pace steady, trying not to show the panic rising in her chest. Every step felt like it could be their last, but they had no choice but to keep moving forward. Where are we going? The girl asked again, her voice a little louder this time. Emma glanced at her, offering a weak smile. I don't know, but I promise we'll figure it out. As they rounded the corner, Emma felt her phone buzz again in her pocket. This time she didn't hesitate. She pulled it out and answered before it could stop ringing. Emma, the voice from earlier said, calm as ever. I see you're trying to run, but you won't get far. You should have known better than to interfere. Emma's blood ran cold. What do you want with her? What do you want with us? The voice chuckled darkly. You really think you can protect her? She's part of something much bigger than you can imagine. If you just handed her over, none of this would be happening. I won't hand her over to anyone, Emma said, her voice shaking with determination. You'll have to kill me first. There was a long silence on the other end, and for a moment, Emma thought they had hung up. But then the voice returned, quieter this time. You're already a part of this, whether you like it or not. You've crossed a line, Emma. There's no turning back now. Before she could respond, the call ended. Her stomach twisted as she shoved the phone back into her pocket. She had no idea what she had gotten herself into, but there was no going back. They had to keep moving, no matter what. They turned down another street, taking the back alleys in hopes of avoiding any prying eyes. The further they went, the more Emma felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She had no idea who these people were, what they wanted, or why they were after this little girl, but she couldn't let them take her. Not now, not after everything they had been through. As they walked, Emma's mind wandered back to the girl's words, night before, "I can't stay here. They'll find me, they'll hurt me." Who were they? And why had she said she couldn't stay in one place for long? It felt like she was part of something dangerous, something that had been set in motion long before Emma had crossed paths with her. The sound of footsteps behind them pulled Emma back into the present. She turned sharply, her heart leaping into her throat, but there was no one there. Still, her instinct screamed at her to move faster. Something was wrong. They were being followed. "Come on," Emma urged the girl, grabbing her hand. "We need to go faster." The girl didn't resist, but her grip was tight, as if she could feel it too, the weight of the danger creeping closer with each passing step. As they rounded another corner, Emma's phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't even need to check it to know who it was. She answered, her voice sharp. "What do you want from me? We're not stopping." The voice on the other end was softer this time, almost soothing. "You're not going to make it very far. We've been watching you, Emma. You really think you can just walk away from this? You're already too involved." Emma's breath caught. "I don't care. I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe." "You're being foolish," the voice said, almost pitying. "But if you're determined to fight, then let's make it interesting. We'll give you until the end of the day. After that, we come for you. You'll know when we're close." The line went dead. Emma pulled the phone away from her ear, her body shaking with adrenaline and fear. They were coming. She could feel it in her bones. They had no intention of letting her go. "Who are they?" the girl asked, her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with fear. Emma didn't answer right away. She didn't know how to explain it. The unknown enemy, the threat that hung over them both. All she knew was that they couldn't stay on the streets much longer. She needed to find somewhere to hide, somewhere to keep the girl safe. They kept walking, but Emma's mind raced. What was this group, and what had they done to the girl that made her so terrified? Why was she so valuable that people would go to such lengths to track her down? And why had Emma been dragged into it? The weight of the questions pressed down on her, but there was no time to find answers. Not now. As they turned another corner, Emma's gaze swept the street. She froze. There, down the road, a black sedan was parked, the same car that had been outside her house last night. She took a sharp breath, and instinctively, she pulled the girl behind a large dumpster, out of sight. "Stay here! Don't move!" Emma whispered, her voice tight with fear. The girl nodded, her eyes wide and panicked. Emma watched the car closely, her pulse racing as a man stepped out of the vehicle. It was him. The same man who had knocked on her door. The same man who had made those chilling threats over the phone. She barely dared to breathe. He was looking right at her, and for a moment Emma was certain he saw her. But then he turned and walked down the street, oblivious to their hiding place. Emma waited until the man was out of sight, her heart still hammering in her chest. "We need to move. Now." But the moment she stepped out from behind the dumpster, she heard it. A faint sound. Footsteps. The unmistakable sound of someone approaching. She turned to the girl, who looked just as frightened as she felt. "Stay." "Close," Emma whispered urgently. "We're almost there." The footsteps echoed louder, and Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she grabbed the girl's hand, urging her to move faster. But the little one was already moving, her small feet scrambling as she followed Emma down the narrow alleyway. They didn't dare look back. They couldn't. Emma's mind raced. They were being hunted. But why? And why did it feel like the answers were just out of reach? As they turned another corner, Emma spotted a narrow, dark passageway that led behind a row of old shops. She pulled the girl toward it, hoping to lose whoever was following them. They stumbled into the shadows, out of sight, but the footsteps were still growing louder. Emma's breath was ragged, her thoughts in disarray. Who was this man? Why did he want the girl so badly? As the sounds of the footsteps grew closer, Emma ducked into a small alcove, pressing herself and the girl against the cold stone wall. The silence that followed was suffocating. They could hear nothing, no movement, no voices. For a split second, Emma thought they might be in the clear. But then she saw him, the man from the car. He stepped into view, looking down the alleyway, his eyes scanning the shadows with a predatory gleam. Emma held her breath, willing herself to stay still. The man's dark eyes flicked past them, but then his head turned slightly, as if sensing something. Emma's heart stopped. It was as if he knew they were right there. He took a step forward, and Emma's pulse quickened. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. They were trapped. Just as he moved another step closer, the girl suddenly pulled. Away from Emma's grip, her small body slipping from the alcove and rushing into the street. "No!" Emma hissed, her voice barely a whisper, but it was too late. The man saw her. He lunged forward, but the girl was too quick. She darted between the man's legs and ran, disappearing into the maze of alleys. Emma followed, her legs moving on their own as the adrenaline flooded her body. "Stop!" the man shouted after them, but they didn't stop. They couldn't. The girl's tiny form was already out of sight, and Emma pushed herself harder, desperation taking over. She could hear the man's footsteps behind her, closing in quickly, but her focus was on one thing only: the girl. She had to keep her safe. Ahead, the girl slowed her pace, looking back for a split second. The moment of hesitation was all it took. The man lunged again, this time grabbing the girl's wrist with an iron grip, pulling her back toward him. "Let her go!" Emma screamed, her voice breaking. Without thinking, she charged at the man, knocking him off balance and sending him stumbling to the ground. The girl collapsed to the ground, but she was free. Emma pulled her up by the arm, and they both scrambled to their feet. "Run!" Emma yelled, and without a second thought the girl turned and bolted. They were so close. They were almost there. Emma didn't look back, but she could feel the man gaining on them. He was angry now, his heavy breathing a reminder of how close he was. Every step they took felt like a victory, but the danger was relentless, and Emma's body was beginning to betray her. Her muscles burned, her lungs screamed for air, but she pushed forward, determined to get them to safety. As they rounded another corner, they entered an open area with tall trees and a small park. Emma scanned the area quickly, her eyes searching for a place to hide. There was no time to think. There was only time to act. "Hide," she told the girl, shoving her behind a large oak tree. Emma crouched down beside her, her breath ragged, her mind on high alert. The man's voice echoed through the park. "I know you're out there. It's pointless to run." Emma clenched her jaw. He was playing with them. He wasn't just chasing them to capture the girl. He was toying with her, making her feel like there was no way out. She took a deep breath, her thoughts clearer now. There had to be a way to stop this. There had to be an answer, something that could break the chain of fear and danger that was closing in around them. But what was it? The girl's hand clutched Emma's arm. "They're coming, aren't they?" she whispered, her voice full of fear. Emma didn't answer immediately. The words felt like they were stuck in her throat. She wanted to say yes, to reassure the girl that everything would be fine, but she couldn't lie to her. They were running out of time. But then, just as she was about to speak, something changed. The sound of tires squealing reached her ears, the unmistakable noise of a car speeding toward them. Emma's heart dropped as she realized the man was no longer alone. They were no longer just being hunted by one person. The whole group was closing in. "Stay here," Emma whispered to the girl, pushing her further behind the tree. The girl obeyed, crouching down low, but Emma knew she couldn't just sit there and wait for it to be over. She had to take control. Emma crept to the edge of the park and peeked through the bushes. The black sedan came into view, its tires screeching as it came to a halt. 3 men stepped out, their expressions hard and ruthless. Emma's stomach twisted. These were no ordinary men. They were professionals, trained, and far more dangerous than anything she had ever faced. One of the men, the one who had been following them, spoke first. "She's here, find her." The others nodded, moving toward the trees, their movements fluid and precise. Emma's mind raced. There had to be something she could do. She couldn't let them take the girl. She looked around desperately. The park was empty, the trees offering little cover. The only option left was the abandoned building near the edge of the park. It wasn't much, but it was their only chance. Emma pulled the girl's hand again, motioning for her to stay low. Together, they ran toward the building, the shadows offering some cover. They reached the back door and found it unlocked. Emma pushed the door open cautiously, praying it wouldn't creak and give them away. They slipped inside, the musty air filling their lungs. Emma's eyes scanned the darkness. There were rooms ahead, empty, hollow rooms with broken windows. The perfect place to hide. They crept through the building, moving silently as they tried to put as much distance between themselves and the men outside. Every step felt like a death sentence, but they had no choice. Finally, they reached a small room in the back of the building, a room with nothing but dust and debris scattered on the floor. Emma pulled the girl into the corner, pressing her small body close. "This is it," Emma whispered. "We have to wait them out." But just as she said those words, the sound of footsteps outside the door grew louder. The men had found the building. Emma's heart stopped. There was no escape now. The end.